The silence in the Galactic Council chamber felt heavy like a thick blanket. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human podium, her hands shaking as she watched the voting display. Red lights blinked across the massive curved wall where representatives from 47 alien species sat in their specialized seats. Each red light meant another species voting against humanity's request for military support. The motion for emergency aid to human colonies in the Kepler system has been denied, announced the council speaker, a tall blue creature with 4 arms and no visible eyes. 45 votes against, 1 abstention, 1 vote in favor. Sarah's heart sank. Only the Vegan delegation had voted for them. Even their supposed allies, the Centaurian Federation, had voted no. She pressed the communication button on her podium with more force than needed. Honored speaker, 3 million human civilians are under attack right now. The hegemony forces will reach our colonies in less than 6 hours. We're not asking for much. Just redirect the 3rd Fleet from the Altarian sector. The speaker's translator device made clicking sounds before his words came out in flat, emotionless, standard Galactic. The Council has reviewed your request. The Altarian crystal mines are deemed strategically more important than the human settlements. The 3rd Fleet will remain in position. But those are lives we're talking about, Sarah said, her voice getting louder. Human lives? Doesn't that mean anything? A ripple of what might have been laughter went through the chamber. The Zephyrian representative, a creature that looked like a giant spider made of metal, spoke up. Ambassador Chen, please remember your place. Humans joined the Council as a probationary member. Your species provides valuable labor and military support when needed. That does not make you equal to full Council members. Sarah felt her face get hot with anger, but she kept her voice steady. We've served the Council for 23 years. Human miners work the most dangerous asteroid fields. Human soldiers fight in your wars. Human colonies produce food for a dozen other species. When do we stop being probationary? The Altarian representative stood up from his crystal seat. His species looked like tall, thin humans, but with skin that seemed to be made of living gemstones. The human delegation seems to forget that they were rescued from their dying planet. Without Council intervention, Earth would have destroyed itself with nuclear weapons decades ago. Your species should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. Serve? Sarah's voice cracked. We thought we were partners. More sounds that might have been laughter echoed through the chamber. The speaker raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The decision is final. Human colonies in the Kepler system are classified as acceptable losses. The 3rd Fleet will protect the Altarian mines. This session is closed. Sarah watched in shock as the alien representatives began filing out of their seats. Some were talking to each other in their own languages, but she caught enough standard Galactic to understand they were already discussing lunch plans. 3 million human lives, and they were thinking about food. She grabbed her communication device and sent an emergency message to Commander Marcus Reed, who was leading the small human defense fleet near Kepler. Marcus, the Council voted no. You're on your own out there. The reply came back in 30 seconds. Copy that, Sarah. We'll do what we can. Tell Earth that we tried our best. 57 light-years away from the Council chambers, Commander Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the largest ship in humanity's small defense fleet. Around him, 12 other human vessels formed a defensive line between the approaching hegemony armada and the 3 human colonies on the planets below. Sir, long-range sensors show 230 enemy ships incoming, reported Lieutenant Kim Santos from her station. They'll be in weapons range in 4 hours. Marcus looked at the tactical display. 13 human ships against 230 hegemony warships. The math was simple and terrible, but behind them were 3 worlds full of human families, children, farmers, and teachers who had spent their whole lives building new homes among the stars. Any word from the 3rd Fleet? He asked, even though he already knew the answer. Negative, sir. Admiral Cortac sent a message saying his orders are to defend the Altarian crystal mines. He wished us luck. Marcus almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. The 3rd Fleet had 48 heavy cruisers and hundreds of smaller ships. They could have stopped the hegemony attack easily. Instead, they were protecting some glowing rocks that made faster-than-light travel cheaper. Sir, incoming message from the hegemony fleet, announced Communications Officer Park. Put it on screen. The main display flickered, and a face appeared that looked almost human except for the gray skin and completely black eyes. This was General Vex of the hegemony, a species that had been fighting the Council for over a century. Human commander, Vex said in accented standard galactic. I am impressed that the Council sent you to die for alien rocks. But we have studied your species. You are warriors, not slaves. Stand aside and let us take what we came for. We have no fight with humans. Marcus stepped forward. General, those aren't rocks you're heading for. Those are our homes. Our families. Vex's expression changed slightly. The Council told you to fight for this? They are not even sending their own ships to help you. That's right, Marcus said. We're on our own. But we're still not moving. For a moment, Vex said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. You are brave fools. I respect this. But I have my orders. In 4 hours, we will destroy your ships and take those worlds. Use this time to evacuate your people. The screen went dark. Marcus looked around his bridge at the young men and women who served under him. They were all volunteers from Earth. People who had joined the human space service to explore the galaxy and protect human colonies. Now they were going to die because alien politicians cared more about mining profits than human lives. Captain Reed, came a voice from behind him. He turned to see Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the fleet's chief science officer. I've been monitoring hegemony communications. Their target isn't the colonies. What do you mean? They're after the research station on Kepler 3. The one where Dr. Yamamoto has been working on improved shield technology. The colonies are just in the way. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. The Council knows this? They have to know. The research data was transmitted to Council headquarters last week. If the hegemony gets it, they'll have shields that can stop any Council weapon. So we're here to die for nothing, said Lieutenant Santos quietly. Marcus stared at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. Everything made sense now. The Council couldn't let the hegemony get the shield technology, but they also couldn't be seen attacking a research station that was officially under human control, so they sent humans to fight and die, making it look like the hegemony was the aggressor. Sir, what are your orders? Asked his tactical officer. Marcus thought about the families on the planets below. He thought about Earth, where his sister was raising 3 children who called him Uncle Marcus. He thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy where people worked and built and hoped for a future among the stars. We fight, he said, not for the Council, not for some research data. We fight because those are our people down there. The next 4 hours passed like a terrible dream. Marcus watched as his small fleet prepared for battle against impossible odds. The humans had newer weapons than most Council species, but they had learned to build them small and efficient because the Council only gave them limited resources. When the hegemony fleet arrived, the battle was fierce, but short. The human ships fought with desperate courage using tactics that surprised the enemy. They rammed damaged vessels into hegemony cruisers. They used their smaller ships as guided missiles. They fought like people who had nothing left to lose. But courage and desperation could not overcome simple math. One by one, the human ships died. The UES Defiance was the last ship left. Marcus stood on a bridge filled with smoke and sparks from damaged systems. Half his crew was dead. The ship's hull had been torn open in 3 places. But somehow they were still fighting. Sir, enemy ships are moving toward the research station, reported Santos, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. Marcus looked at the display. The hegemony had lost 30 ships in the battle, but they still had 200 left, more than enough to take what they wanted and destroy the colonies. Sir, incoming transmission from the 3rd Fleet, announced Park. Marcus almost couldn't believe it. Put it through. Admiral Cortax's face appeared on the screen. The Altarian's crystal features looked concerned. Commander Reed, we have been monitoring your battle. Your resistance has been noted and appreciated. Appreciated? Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Where the hell have you been? The Council has decided that the hegemony victory in your sector is acceptable. The 3rd Fleet has new orders to withdraw to the core systems. The Altarian mines are no longer considered at risk. Marcus stared at the alien admiral. You're running away. We are following Council orders. You should consider surrendering, Commander. The hegemony has offered to spare your crew if you stand down. What about the colonies? Cortax's expression didn't change. The colonies were always considered expendable. The research station's destruction is actually preferred. The technology was becoming too advanced for human oversight. The transmission ended. Marcus stood in the damaged bridge of his dying ship, understanding flooding through him like ice water. They had never intended to save the colonies. They had sent 13 human ships to die as a distraction while the Third Fleet ran away. The families on the planets below were going to be killed or enslaved, and the Council would file a report calling it an acceptable loss. "Sir, the Hegemony General is requesting communication," said Park. "Put him through." General Vex appeared on the screen again. His ships were already past the human defensive line, heading for the planets. "Commander, your fight is over. You have shown great courage. I offer you one final chance to surrender." Marcus looked at his tactical display. The Defiance was barely holding together. His weapons were almost out of power. His shields were gone. In 30 minutes, maybe less, his ship would be destroyed, but he could still record everything that had happened. "General Vex," Marcus said, "I have one request. Give me 5 minutes to send a message to Earth." Vex considered this. "You have earned 5 minutes." Marcus nodded to Park, who opened a secure channel to Earth. For the next 5 minutes, Marcus Reed told the complete story of what had happened in the Kepler system. He transmitted the recordings of his conversations with the Council, with Admiral Cortac, and with General Vex. He sent every piece of evidence that showed how the Council had betrayed humanity. When he finished, he looked at his crew. "Anyone who wants to take the Hegemony's offer can go. I won't think less of you." Nobody moved. "All right then," Marcus said. "Let's show them how humans say goodbye." The UES Defiance died fighting, taking 2 more Hegemony ships with it. Commander Marcus Reed's message reached Earth 3 days later, along with news that 3 million human colonists had been killed or captured, and that the Council had classified the entire incident as an acceptable workforce reduction. On Earth, in the halls of the Human Colonial Authority, officials who had spent decades believing they were part of something larger began to understand a terrible truth. They had never been partners in the Galactic Council. They had been tools used and discarded when convenient. And now, for the first time in 23 years, humanity was angry. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes burned from staring at computer screens, and her coffee had gone cold hours ago. But she could not stop reading. The data that Commander Reed had transmitted before his death was bigger than anyone had imagined. She sat in the deep underground facility beneath the Human Colonial Authority headquarters in Geneva. The room was called the Archive, and it held copies of every document, treaty, and communication between Earth and the Galactic Council for the past 23 years. Elena was the head archivist, which meant she knew where all the secrets were buried. What she had found in Reed's transmission changed everything. The Hegemony General had been telling the truth when he said they studied humans. Hidden in the battle recordings were fragments of intercepted alien communications. Elena had spent 60 hours translating them, cross-referencing them with Council documents and trying to understand what she was seeing. It started with a simple observation. In the recordings, Hegemony officers kept referring to humans as apex hunters and pack predators. They talked about human endurance ratings and adaptation speed like these were dangerous, things to be worried about. This confused Elena because the Council had always told humans they were a weak species that needed protection and guidance. Humans were good at manual labor and following orders, but they were not naturally strong or smart or dangerous. That was why they needed the Council's help to survive in the galaxy. But the Hegemony data suggested something very different. Elena pulled up the classified Council files that Reed had somehow accessed during his final battle. The access codes were in his transmission, probably stolen when his ship's computers connected to the Council network. She had been afraid to use them at first, but after 3 sleepless nights, she no longer cared about getting in trouble. The first file she opened was labeled Species Assessment. Humanity, restricted access. What she read made her hands shake. Physical Assessment. Human baseline endurance exceeds Council average by 340%. Recovery time from injury averages 60% faster than comparable species. Resistance to environmental extremes rates in the 95th percentile. Note: these capabilities appear to be standard across all human populations, not limited to specialized individuals. Elena read that paragraph 3 times. The Council had tested human physical abilities and found them to be far superior to most alien species. But humans had never been told this. In fact, they had been told the opposite. She scrolled down to the next section. Mental Assessment. Human learning speed and adaptation to new situations exceeds Council parameters by significant margins. Problem-solving approaches consistently utilize unconventional methods that achieve results faster than standard protocols. Combat tactical assessments show unprecedented flexibility and creative thinking. Warning: human intuition appears to be advanced pattern recognition that could pose strategic advantages in conflict situations. Elena leaned back in her chair. The Council's own scientists had determined that humans were naturally better at learning and fighting than most other species. This was not opinion or theory. This was official Council research. She kept reading. Social assessment. Human pack bonding extends beyond family groups to include non-genetic associations and even other species. This trait appears to be hardwired and cannot be suppressed through standard conditioning methods. Human groups show extreme loyalty and willingness to sacrifice individual welfare for group survival. Recommendation: keep human settlements small and scattered to prevent large-scale pack bonding that could threaten Council authority. Elena felt sick. The Council had deliberately kept human colonies small and separated. They had prevented humans from forming large communities not for safety reasons, but because they were afraid of what humans might do if they worked together. But there was more. The next file was labeled Contingency Protocol, Human Management. Current human populations across Council space: 847 million individuals spread across 312 worlds and stations. Risk assessment: moderate to high. Recommendation: maintain current suppression protocols. Elena opened the suppression protocols document. What she found inside made her understand why Commander Reed had died fighting alone. Technology restrictions: limit human access to advanced weapons, propulsion, and communication systems. Officially justify as safety measures due to human inexperience. Maintain restrictions indefinitely. Military limitations: human forces should never exceed 15% of total Council military strength. Assign humans to high-casualty roles to maintain population control while maximizing utility. Information control: restrict human access to comprehensive galactic databases. Provide only information necessary for assigned tasks. Monitor all human research and confiscate any developments that could enhance military capabilities. Political suppression: maintain human status as probationary members, regardless of service record or contributions. Never allow human representation in key Council decisions. Rotate human ambassadors frequently to prevent relationship building with other species. Elena stood up so fast her chair fell over. The Council had been deliberately keeping humanity weak and divided for over 2 decades. Every limitation, every restriction, every rule that kept humans safe was actually designed to keep them controlled. She opened the next file with shaking fingers. Threat assessment: unrestricted human development. Computer models indicate that unlimited human technological and military development could result in Council authority degradation within 50–100 years. Human industrial capacity, combined with their natural abilities and pack bonding traits, represents the single greatest potential threat to galactic stability. Historical analysis of human warfare suggests that this species engages in conflict with unprecedented intensity and innovation. Human total war concepts are incompatible with Council conflict resolution protocols. Recommendation: current suppression measures must be maintained. In the event of human rebellion, immediate military action is authorized to prevent cascade effects among other subjugated species. Elena sank into another chair. The Council was not just keeping humans weak. They were planning to destroy humanity if humans ever figured out what was happening. She opened one more file, labeled Internal Memo, Earth Integration Success. It was a communication between Council leaders from 5 years ago. The human integration continues to exceed expectations. Despite their natural capabilities, they remain convinced of their inferiority and dependence on Council protection. Human leaders actively suppress their own military development in exchange for Council approval. Recommend continuing current approach for indefinite period. Note: human reproductive rates and expansion patterns remain within acceptable parameters. Population growth is being effectively channeled into labor roles with minimal education requirements. Advanced human education should continue to be restricted to individuals who demonstrate absolute loyalty to Council authority. The Earth integration serves as a model for future species incorporations. By convincing a naturally powerful species that they are weak and dependent, we have gained access to their capabilities while eliminating the threat they represent. Elena closed the files and sat in the dark archive room. Everything humans believed about themselves was a lie. They were not weak. They were not dependent. They were not inferior to other species. The Council had tested them and found them to be superior in almost every measurable way. Then they had spent 23 years convincing humans that the opposite was true. She thought about Commander Reed and his 13 ships facing 200 enemy vessels. She thought about the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, isolated and small because the Council had designed it that way. She thought about the human workers mining asteroids that would kill most other species, and the human soldiers fighting in the worst battles because they were considered expendable. All of it had been planned. All of it had been designed to keep humanity weak and divided while the Council used their natural abilities for alien benefit. Elena opened her communication system and sent a priority message to Director James Walsh, the head of the Human Colonial Authority. The message was simple. Emergency meeting required. Bring President Martinez and General Kim. What I found changes everything. 2 hours later, Elena sat in a secure conference room with the 3 most powerful humans on Earth. President Maria Martinez looked tired. She had been dealing with angry crowds outside government buildings ever since news of the Kepler massacre had reached Earth. Director Walsh looked confused. He had thought this meeting was about funeral arrangements for the dead colonists. General Patricia Kim, the head of Earth's military forces, looked suspicious. She had been asking uncomfortable questions about why the Council had refused to help at Kepler, and she did not like the answers she was getting. Elena, said President Martinez, I hope this is important. We have 3 million people to mourn, and a lot of angry families who want to know why their government couldn't protect them. Elena activated the room's main display screen. Madam President, what I'm about to show you is going to change how we see everything. The Council has been lying to us for 23 years. She started with the species assessment documents. She watched the faces of the 3 leaders as they read about human physical and mental capabilities that exceeded most alien species by huge margins. This can't be right, said Director Walsh. The Council told us humans needed their protection because we were a young, weak species. The Council's own scientists determined that we're stronger, faster and more adaptable than most of their member species, Elena replied. They've known this since we first made contact. She showed them the technology restrictions and military limitations. She showed them the political suppression protocols. She showed them the internal memos celebrating how well the Council had convinced humans they were inferior. General Kim was the first to speak. They've been treating us like farm animals. President Martinez stared at the screen. 800 million people across 300 worlds, and they've kept us scattered and limited because they're afraid of us? It gets worse, Elena said. She showed them the threat assessment files and the plans for military action, if humans ever rebelled. They're planning to exterminate us if we get too strong, said Director Walsh quietly. The Kepler massacre wasn't incompetence or indifference, Elena continued. It was a test. They wanted to see how we would react to being abandoned. Reed's transmission shows that they could have saved those colonies easily, but they chose not to. General Kim stood up and began pacing. 23 years. We've been following their rules, accepting their limitations, believing we needed their help, and the whole time they've been keeping us weak on purpose. What about the other species? Asked President Martinez. Are they all part of this? Elena pulled up another file. Some of them are. The Altarians and Centaurians are full partners who benefit from keeping other species controlled. But most Council members are just like us. Subjugated species who think they're being protected when they're actually being managed. The hegemony, said General Kim suddenly. They've been fighting the Council for over a century. They're not trying to conquer the galaxy. They're trying to free it. Elena nodded. The hegemony communications that Reed intercepted suggest they've known about Council suppression protocols for decades. That's why they offered to let Reed's ships leave. They don't want to fight humans. They want humans to fight the Council. The room fell silent. Elena watched as the reality sank in for the 3 most powerful people in human government. Everything they had worked for, everything they had believed in, had been a carefully constructed lie designed to keep humanity enslaved. What do we do now? Asked Director Walsh. President Martinez looked at General Kim. Patricia, how long would it take to contact every human colony and station? With our current communication systems? About 6 weeks to reach everyone. And how long to bring them home? General Kim thought for a moment. If we pulled everyone back to Earth and the core colonies? Maybe 8 months. But Madam President, the Council would notice that kind of movement. Let them notice, said President Martinez. Elena, make copies of everything Reed sent us. Every document, every file, every piece of evidence. I want them distributed to every human settlement in the galaxy. She stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Lake Geneva. In the distance, she could see the lights of the city where millions of humans lived their lives, unaware that their entire relationship with the galaxy was built on lies. For 23 years, we've been asking the Council for permission to exist, she said without turning around. We've followed their rules, accepted their limitations, and believed their lies about our own capabilities. She turned back to face the others. That ends now. Elena, I want you to prepare a complete briefing for every government leader, every military commander, and every colony administrator. They need to know what we really are. General Kim, I want you to prepare options for what happens next. The Council is planning to destroy us if we get too strong. Well, they're about to find out what too strong really means. She looked at each of them in turn. We're not weak. We're not dependent. We're not inferior. We're humans, and it's time the galaxy remembered what that means. Outside the conference room, Elena could hear the sounds of protests in the streets. Families demanding answers about why their loved ones had died at Kepler, citizens asking why their government had failed to protect them. Soon, Elena thought they would have their answers, and the galaxy would discover what humans could do when they stopped believing Council lies about their own limitations. The age of human submission was about to end. Admiral Rebecca Torres had been waiting for this moment her entire life, though she had never imagined it would come like this. She stood at the center of the emergency assembly hall in Geneva, looking up at representatives from every human government on Earth and beyond. The circular chamber held 1,200 people, each one representing millions of human lives scattered across the galaxy. It had taken 6 weeks to get everyone here. 6 weeks of secret communications, hidden meetings, and careful planning. 6 weeks of making sure the Council did not know what humanity was preparing to do. The hall was completely silent. Rebecca could feel the weight of history pressing down on the moment. In front of her, arranged in precise rows, sat the leaders who would decide humanity's future. President Martinez of Earth, Chancellor Chen of the Mars Republic, Director Kim of the Asteroid Mining Coalition, Governor Okafor of the Titan Research Stations, representatives from 300 human colonies, mining operations, and research facilities spread across 47 star systems. All of them had read Elena Vasquez's report. All of them knew the truth about what the Council had done to humanity. And all of them were angry. Rebecca activated her communication implant and spoke. Her voice carried to every person in the chamber and to every human settlement watching the broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives of humanity, she began. We gather today not as subjects of the Galactic Council, but as free people who have finally learned the truth about our place in this galaxy. She paused, looking around the chamber. She could see anger in their faces, but also something else. Hope. For 23 years, we have lived as the Council's tools. We have accepted their limitations on our technology, their restrictions on our growth, and their lies about our own capabilities. We have sent our people to die in their wars while believing we were weak and dependent on their protection. The display screens around the chamber lit up with images from Elena's files. Council documents describing humans as naturally superior to most alien species. Internal memos celebrating how successfully they had convinced humanity of its own inferiority. Plans for human extermination if the species ever became too powerful. The Council has known since first contact that humanity represents the greatest potential threat to their authority, Rebecca continued. They have spent over 2 decades making sure we never realized our own strength. She gestured to the screens showing human casualties from Council wars. The Kepler massacre was just the latest in a long list of human sacrifices made for alien benefit. Our people have died in the most dangerous battles because the Council considered us expendable. Our colonies have been kept small and scattered because they feared what we might accomplish if we worked together. Our technology has been restricted because they knew what we could build if we tried. Chancellor Chen of Mars stood up. Admiral Torres, what you're describing is systematic enslavement. But what do you propose we do about it? The Council has thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. Even if we're stronger than they told us, we're still vastly outnumbered. Rebecca smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. Chancellor, you're thinking like a council member. You're thinking about massive fleets and traditional warfare, but humans don't fight like other species. She activated new displays showing human military history. Ancient battles where small human forces had defeated much larger enemies through tactics, technology, and sheer determination. We are the species that conquered our own planet not through strength or numbers, but through intelligence and cooperation. We are the species that went from stone tools to space travel in less than 10,000 years. We are the species that the Council has spent 23 years trying to keep controlled because they knew what we could become. President Martinez stood up. Admiral, I hope you have more than inspirational speeches. The Council will not simply let us walk away. Rebecca nodded. Madam President, I have much more than speeches. What I have is the complete liberation of human potential. She gestured to Dr. Vasquez, who activated a new set of displays. These showed technical specifications, weapon designs, and ship blueprints that made several representatives gasp in surprise. For 23 years, human scientists and engineers have been working within Council restrictions. They have built the equipment we were allowed to build, researched the technologies we were permitted to research, and followed the safety guidelines we were told to follow. Elena stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, those restrictions were never about safety. They were about keeping us weak. Every limitation the Council placed on us was designed to prevent us from developing our full capabilities. She showed them weapon designs that exceeded Council technology by huge margins, ship blueprints that could outrun and outfight anything in the alien fleets, communication systems that could coordinate human forces across the galaxy in real time. This is what human technology looks like when we stop asking for permission, Elena said. These designs have been ready for years. We just weren't allowed to build them. Director Kim of the Asteroid Mining Coalition leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, are you saying we already have the technology to fight the Council? I'm saying we have the technology to do much more than fight them, Elena replied. We have the technology to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Rebecca activated her communication system again. Representatives, what I'm about to share with you will change everything. For the past 6 weeks, while we've been planning this assembly, human engineers and scientists across the galaxy have been quietly preparing. New displays showed construction sites on human worlds, hidden manufacturing facilities and research stations that had been operating in secret for years. The Prometheus Protocols, Rebecca announced, named after the mythological figure who gave fire to humanity. These are the complete specifications for unrestricted human military and industrial development. Governor Okafor from Titan stood up. Admiral, this sounds like you're talking about war. I'm talking about freedom, Rebecca replied. The Council has made it clear that they will never allow humanity to reach its full potential. They have plans to exterminate us if we become too powerful. War is not something we're choosing. War is something they have already declared on us. She gestured to the screen showing the Kepler massacre and dozens of other incidents where human lives had been sacrificed for Council benefit. The only choice we have is whether to die on our knees or fight on our feet. The chamber erupted in discussions as representatives talked among themselves. Rebecca could hear dozens of conversations in multiple languages as human leaders debated the most important decision in their species' history. President Martinez stood up and the chamber fell silent. Admiral Torres, if we do this, there's no going back. The Council will see it as rebellion. Madam President, the Council already sees us as tools to be used and discarded. The only thing that will change is that we'll stop pretending otherwise. Martinez looked around the chamber, all in favor of activating the Prometheus protocols and ending human submission to Council authority. Hands went up across the chamber. Rebecca counted them quickly. It was not even close. Over 90% of human representatives voted yes. Martinez nodded. Admiral Torres, you have authorization to proceed. Rebecca stepped forward to the central podium. She placed her hand on the activation panel and looked up at the cameras that were broadcasting this moment to every human settlement in the galaxy. Citizens of humanity, she said. For 23 years we have been playing by their rules in their galaxy, with their restrictions. We have accepted their limitations and believed their lies about our own capabilities. She paused, feeling the weight of 800 million human lives depending on what happened next. No more. She pressed her palm to the activation panel. Across the chamber, green lights began flashing as secure communications opened to human facilities throughout the galaxy. Today we stop asking for permission to exist. Today we take what is ours, authorization code. Terra unleashed. All restrictions on human military and industrial development are hereby lifted. On screens throughout the chamber, they could see the immediate response. Manufacturing facilities on dozens of human worlds came online. Research stations that had been operating in secret revealed themselves. Weapon production lines that had been hidden for years began full operation. We are going to show the Council and the galaxy what humans do when we stop holding back, Rebecca continued. We are going to demonstrate what our species can accomplish when we work together without artificial limitations. She looked directly into the main camera. To every human colony, every research station, every mining operation, and every individual who has ever wondered why we seemed so weak compared to other species, now you know the truth. We were never weak. We were never dependent. We were never inferior. We are humans. We are the species that conquered death, distance, and our own limitations to reach the stars. We are the species that other civilizations fear so much they spent decades keeping us controlled. Rebecca's voice grew stronger, and now they are going to learn what happens when humanity is finally unleashed. The communication system chimed with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Human colonies were responding to the activation codes. Military commanders were confirming receipt of new weapon specifications. Scientists were reporting that hidden research projects were coming online. The age of human submission is over, Rebecca announced. The age of human independence has begun. She turned to address the representatives in the chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council will respond to this quickly. They have protocols for dealing with rebellious species. What they do not have is experience dealing with humans who are no longer pretending to be weak. In the next few hours, you will see human technology and capabilities that have been hidden for decades. You will see what our people can accomplish when they are free to use their full potential. The Council told us we needed their protection. They told us we were too weak and primitive to survive on our own. They told us that following their rules was the only way to find our place among the stars. Rebecca smiled, and this time there was no anger in it, only confidence. They were wrong about everything except one thing. We are going to change the galaxy. We are going to show every species what freedom looks like, and we are going to prove that humans do not need anyone's permission to claim our rightful place among the stars. The chamber erupted in cheers as representatives stood and applauded, but Rebecca was already thinking about what came next. The Council would see the activation of human facilities across the galaxy within hours. They would respond with their own military forces, believing they could crush human rebellion like they had crushed other species in the past. They were about to learn why the Council had been so afraid of unleashed humanity. On screens throughout the chamber, status reports continued flowing in from human settlements across the galaxy. Every report carried the same message. Prometheus protocols activated, awaiting orders. For the first time in 23 years, humanity was united, unrestrained, and ready to show the galaxy what they could really do. The war was about to begin. The first Council ships appeared over Earth at exactly 600 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Rebecca Torres watched them through the tactical display in the Solar Defense Command Center, deep beneath the Swiss Alps. 47 heavy cruisers and their escort fleets had dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, positioning themselves between Earth and its moon. They're trying to look impressive, said General Patricia Kim, standing beside Rebecca at the command console. Standard Council intimidation formation. They probably expect us to surrender immediately. Rebecca smiled. The Council had responded exactly as predicted. When human facilities across the galaxy had activated the Prometheus protocols 12 hours ago, the alien leadership had panicked. Their careful plans to keep humanity weak and scattered had been destroyed in a single moment. And now they were trying to restore control through their traditional method, overwhelming force. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Council fleet, reported Communications Officer Park. Put it through. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of a Council heavy cruiser. Admiral Kortak, the same Altarian who had abandoned Commander Reed at Kepler, appeared on screen. His crystal-like features reflected the lights of his ship's bridge. "Admiral Torres," Cortac said in flat, emotionless Standard Galactic, "you are ordered to surrender immediately and submit to Council authority. Your illegal activation of restricted technology is a violation of 17 galactic treaties." Rebecca stepped forward. "Admiral Cortac, Earth no longer recognizes Council authority over human affairs. You are ordered to withdraw from our solar system immediately." Cortac's expression did not change, but Rebecca could see other aliens moving behind him on the bridge. "Admiral, you seem to misunderstand your position. The Council has the authority to enforce galactic law. Humans are a probationary species with no right to independent action." "Humans are no longer a Council species at all," Rebecca replied. "As of 12 hours ago, we declared our independence. Your treaties have no authority over free people." "Independence?" Something that might have been amusement flickered across Cortac's features. "Admiral Torres, you have 13 aging ships in your defense fleet. I have 47 heavy cruisers and complete authority to use them. Surrender now and the Council will be merciful." Rebecca looked at the tactical display. Cortac was right about the numbers. Earth's official defense fleet consisted of 13 ships that were over 20 years old, built under Council restrictions, and armed with limited weapons. Against 47 modern Council warships, they would not stand a chance. "Admiral Cortac," Rebecca said calmly, "you seem to be operating under outdated information. Earth's defense fleet is somewhat larger than you think." She nodded to General Kim, who activated the system-wide tactical display. Suddenly, the screens throughout the command center lit up with new contacts appearing throughout the solar system. Where there had been 13 human ships, there were now over 300. "What?" Cortac's voice carried actual surprise for the first time. "Where did those ships come from?" Rebecca smiled. "Admiral, for the past 6 months, every human manufacturing facility in the solar system has been working in secret. Every asteroid mining operation has been building new vessels. Every research station has been developing improved technology. What you're seeing is what happens when humans stop following your restrictions." The new human ships were unlike anything the Council had seen before. They were smaller than Council vessels but moved with impossible speed and agility. Their hulls were sleek and angular, designed for maximum efficiency rather than impressive appearance. And their weapon signatures were completely unknown. "Those ships are illegal," Cortac said, but his voice carried uncertainty now. "Human technology is restricted by Council mandate." "Council mandates have no authority over Earth," Rebecca replied. "As of today, humans will build whatever we choose to build." She activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. Execute Dawn Protocol." What happened next would be analyzed by military historians for centuries. The human fleet did not attack in the traditional sense. Instead, they simply demonstrated what unrestricted human technology could do. Human ships accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for vessels their size. They performed maneuvers that violated every known principle of space combat. Their weapons reached out across distances that exceeded Council weapon range by enormous margins. Within 30 minutes, the Council fleet found itself completely surrounded by human vessels that could outrun, outmaneuver, and outfight anything they had ever encountered. "Admiral Cortac," Rebecca said, "you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from our solar system. After that, we will consider your continued presence an act of war." On the screen, she could see panic spreading through the Council bridge. Alien officers were shouting in their own languages, and tactical displays showed Council ships trying desperately to track human vessels that moved like nothing they had ever seen. "This is impossible," Cortac said. "Human technology cannot exceed Council capabilities." "Human technology was restricted to prevent it from exceeding Council capabilities," Rebecca corrected. "Those restrictions no longer apply." 29 seconds passed. Then 30. "All human ships," Rebecca announced. "The Council fleet has chosen war. Disable their engines and weapons. Minimize casualties, but ensure they cannot threaten Earth." What followed was not really a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when a species that had been artificially suppressed for 23 years finally used its full capabilities. Human ships moved through the Council formation like wolves hunting sheep. Their weapons precisely targeted enemy engines and weapon systems, leaving the alien vessels helpless but intact. Council return fire missed human ships that simply were not where sensors said they should be. In less than an hour, The entire Council fleet was disabled and helpless. "Admiral Kortak," Rebecca said as his ship drifted powerless through space, "you and your fleet are free to leave our solar system. Your ships will be repaired enough to reach the nearest Council facility. Consider this a message to your superiors. Earth is no longer part of their empire." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. General Kim was the first to speak. "Rebecca, that was incredible. But this is just the beginning. When the Council realizes what happened here, they'll send everything they have." Rebecca nodded, "Which is exactly what we want them to do. Patricia, activate Phase 2. Across the galaxy, human colonies and stations received new orders. The demonstration at Earth had been impressive, but it was only the first step. Now it was time to show the Council that humans could do more than defend themselves. The human colony on Proxima Centauri was the first to act. Instead of waiting for Council forces to arrive, they launched their own attack on the nearby Council military base at Alpha Centauri. Using ships and weapons that had been built in secret over the past 6 months, they captured the base in less than 4 hours. Similar attacks began throughout human space. Small human fleets struck at Council facilities, using tactics that alien military commanders could not predict or counter. They captured supply stations, liberated other subjugated species, and seized control of critical hyperspace routes. But the most important battle was taking place at Titan Station. Dr. Sarah Chen, the former ambassador who had witnessed the Council's betrayal at Kepler, now stood on the bridge of the newly constructed battleship UES Defiance II, named after Commander Reed's fallen vessel. Around her, a mixed fleet of human and hegemony ships prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. "Admiral Chen," came a voice from the communication system. It was General Vex of the hegemony, the same alien who had offered Reed the chance to withdraw at Kepler. "Your people have surprised us all. We had hoped humanity would eventually join our fight against the Council, but we did not expect such rapid progress." "General Vex," Sarah replied, "humanity has had 23 years to prepare for this day. We just needed to realize we were already at war." On the tactical display, over 500 Council ships were approaching Titan Station. This was not a police action or a demonstration of force. This was the Council's full military response to human rebellion, intended to destroy humanity's industrial capacity and end the uprising before it could spread. "Admiral, Council Fleet Commander is requesting communication," reported her tactical officer. "Put it through." The screen showed the bridge of a massive Council dreadnought. Standing at its center was Supreme Admiral Zarkoth, a member of the Draconian species and the highest-ranking military officer in the Council hierarchy. He looked like a giant lizard walking upright, with scales that shifted color as he moved. "Human rebel," Zarkoth said in a voice like grinding stone. "You have made a grave error. The Council has ruled this galaxy for over 1,000 years. No single species has ever successfully challenged our authority." Sarah smiled. "Supreme Admiral, that's because no species has ever had the advantages we do." "Advantages?" Zarkoth's laugh sounded like rocks falling. "You have shown some tactical skill, but numbers decide wars. I have 500 ships. You have perhaps 50. "I have more than ships," Sarah replied. "I have something the Council has never faced before. Humans who are no longer pretending to be weak." She gestured to her tactical officer, who activated the system-wide communication array. Suddenly, ships began appearing throughout the Titan system. Not just human ships, but vessels from a dozen other species that had been suppressed by the Council for centuries. "You see, Supreme Admiral, when humans stopped believing Council lies about our own limitations, we also stopped believing their lies about galactic history. We reached out to other species, other civilizations that had been conquered and controlled. It turns out the galaxy is full of people who have been waiting for someone to stand up to you." The tactical display showed the true size of the rebel fleet. Nearly 800 ships from 15 different species, all united against the Council that had kept them subjugated for generations. "This is impossible," Zarkoth said, but his voice carried uncertainty now. "The Council maintains order. Without our authority, the galaxy would fall into chaos." "The Council maintains control through fear and lies," Sarah replied. "What you're seeing is what happens when people stop being afraid." The battle that followed would be remembered as the turning point of the Galactic Liberation War. Council forces, despite their numerical advantage and superior firepower, found themselves facing enemies who fought with desperate courage and tactical innovations they could not counter. Human ships used ramming attacks that should have been suicidal but somehow succeeded. Allied vessels coordinated their assaults using communication methods the Council could not intercept. Rebel fighters performed maneuvers that violated every principle of space combat that alien commanders had been taught. Most importantly, the rebel forces fought as if their lives depended on victory, while Council forces fought as if they expected easy victory. The difference in motivation proved decisive. When Supreme Admiral Zarkoth's flagship exploded under concentrated fire from human and hegemony vessels, the Council fleet began to retreat. For the first time in over 1,000 years, Council military forces had been defeated in open battle. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance II, watching Council ships flee toward hyperspace. Around her, officers from a dozen different species celebrated the impossible victory. "Admiral," came a voice from the communication system. It was Admiral Torres calling from Earth. "Sarah, reports are coming in from across the galaxy. Human colonies are declaring independence. Allied species are joining the rebellion. The Council's authority is collapsing." Sarah nodded, but she felt no celebration. The war was far from over. The Council still controlled most of the galaxy, and they would not give up easily. "Rebecca," she said, "we've won the first battles. But the Council has resources we can't imagine. This is just the beginning." "I know," Torres replied, "but we've proven something important today. We've shown the galaxy that the Council can be defeated. Now we have to prove that we can build something better to replace them." Sarah looked at the tactical display, where ships from a dozen species were beginning to form new formations, new alliances, new possibilities for the future of the galaxy. The war had begun, but already it was becoming something larger than just human independence. It was becoming a fight for the freedom of every species that had been suppressed, controlled, and limited by Council authority. And for the first time in over 1,000 years, that fight had a real chance of succeeding. 6 months after the Battle of Titan, Admiral Rebecca Torres stood in what had once been the Galactic Council's most secure command center. The massive chamber on the planet Galactic Prime still hummed with alien technology, but now human technicians worked alongside engineers from dozens of liberated species to understand systems that had controlled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. The war had ended 3 weeks ago, not with humanity's surrender, but with the Council's complete collapse. 17 Council worlds had fallen to human-led forces. Over 40 subjugated species had declared independence. The remaining Council leadership had fled to the far edges of the galaxy, their authority shattered and their military broken. Rebecca should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt deeply worried. "Admiral, you need to see this," called Dr. Elena Vasquez from across the command center. Elena had been working for weeks to translate the Council's deepest archives, searching for information about galactic history and the true reasons behind their oppressive rule. Rebecca walked over to Elena's workstation, where alien symbols scrolled across multiple screens. The text was in High Galactic, the ancient language used only for the most classified Council documents. "What did you find?" Rebecca asked. Elena's face was pale. The real reason the Council kept everyone weak and divided. "Rebecca, they weren't just maintaining their own power. They were protecting the galaxy from something much worse." She activated a new display showing star charts from the galactic rim, far beyond the borders of Council space. Strange symbols marked locations in the deep void between galaxies, areas where no known civilization had ever traveled. 3,700 years ago, the Council encountered something in deep space. They called them the devourers. According to these records, the devourers are a civilization that consumes other civilizations. They don't just conquer planets or enslave species. They literally eat entire cultures, absorbing their knowledge, their technology, and their life force. Rebecca felt cold despite the warm air in the command center. "How big are we talking about?" The Council's first contact with them involved a single devourer ship that destroyed an entire star system in less than 6 hours. The ship then somehow absorbed all the energy, all the matter, and all the information from that system. When it left, there was nothing but empty space. Elena brought up more files showing Council military reports from thousands of years ago. The Council fought a war against the Devourers for over 2 centuries. They lost every major battle, but the Devourers suddenly stopped attacking and withdrew to the space between galaxies. Why did they stop? According to this, Elena highlighted a section of text. The devourers only attack civilizations that reach a certain level of technological and military development. They're attracted to large-scale energy signatures, massive fleet movements, and advanced weapon usage. The Council discovered that if they kept galactic civilizations small, weak, and divided, the devourers would ignore them. Rebecca stared at the screen. So the Council's oppression wasn't just about maintaining power. It was about survival. Exactly. Every restriction on human technology, every limitation on fleet sizes, every rule that kept species from working together. All of it was designed to keep galactic civilization below the threshold that would attract devourer attention. Elena brought up the most recent files, dated just 3 months ago. Rebecca, the devourers have sensors in deep space. They've been monitoring galactic activity for thousands of years, and according to this data, the energy signatures from our war against the Council have been detected. The command center fell silent except for the humming of alien machines. Rebecca looked around at the dozens of people working to build a new galactic government, unaware that their victory might have doomed them all. "How long do we have?" Rebecca asked. The Council estimated that once the devourers detect advanced civilization activity, they take between 6 months and 2 years to mobilize their forces. Given that our war ended 3 weeks ago, and these energy readings started 6 months ago. Elena didn't need to finish. Rebecca understood. The devourers were already coming. "Admiral Torres," came a voice from the main communication system. "Priority transmission from long-range sensors." Rebecca activated the system. "Go ahead." "Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the galactic rim. Unknown ships and size classification. Admiral, these things are huge. Each one is larger than our biggest space stations." Rebecca felt her heart sink. "How many ships?" "Sensors indicate at least 40 confirmed contacts, with more appearing every hour." "Ma'am, they're headed directly for Council space." Elena was already pulling up more files from the archives. "Rebecca, there's more." The Council had contingency plans for this scenario. If the devourers ever returned, they were prepared to unite all galactic species under emergency military authority and fight with everything they had. Did their plans have any chance of success? Elena was quiet for a long moment. According to their own analysis, even with every species working together and using all available technology, they estimated a 15% chance of survival. Rebecca looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching devourer fleet. 40 massive ships, each one capable of destroying star systems. And behind them, sensors were detecting even larger energy signatures that suggested the main devourer force had not even arrived yet. "Admiral?" came another voice from communications. "Incoming transmission from the Hegemony fleet. General Vex is requesting immediate conference with all Allied leaders." "Put it through." The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a Hegemony vessel. General Vex appeared, along with representatives from a dozen other species that had joined the rebellion against the Council. "Admiral Torres," Vex said without preamble, "our deep space sensors have detected the approaching threat. My government has been monitoring devourer movements for over a century. What the Council feared has finally happened." A new voice joined the conversation. It was Admiral Chen, calling from the human fleet near Proxima Centauri. "Rebecca, we're receiving similar reports from across the galaxy. Every species that has access to long-range sensors is detecting the same thing. Something massive is coming and it's headed straight for us." Another voice added itself to the communication. This one belonged to Ambassador Thek of the Centaurian Federation, one of the few Council species that had sided with the rebellion. "Honored colleagues, my people have access to some of the oldest Council archives. The entity approaching is what our ancestors called the Great Hunger. It has devoured entire galaxy clusters." Rebecca felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. Months ago, she had been a human admiral fighting for her species' freedom. Now she was apparently responsible for defending the entire galaxy against an enemy that even the mighty Council had been afraid to face. "All right," she said, her voice carrying across the communication network to leaders of dozens of species. "What are our options?" General Vex spoke first. "Admiral Torres, the Hegemony has been preparing for this possibility for generations. We have weapons and ships that were specifically designed to fight the devourers, but our forces alone cannot stop them. The Zephyrian Republic has advanced shield technology that might be able to protect our worlds," added another voice. "But we need time to deploy it across all inhabited systems." Ambassador Thek's translator made clicking sounds before his words came through. The Centaurian Federation can provide industrial capacity and shipbuilding facilities. But we need unified command and coordination that spans the entire galaxy. Rebecca looked around the command center at the faces of humans and aliens working together. 6 months ago, most of these species had been enemies or strangers. Now they were being asked to trust each other with the survival of all intelligent life in the galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca said, we have 3 choices. We can run and hope the devourers don't follow us to whatever galaxy we try to hide in. We can hide and hope they don't notice us if we stay quiet and small. Or we can fight. What do you recommend, Admiral? Asked Dr. Chen. Rebecca thought about Commander Reed, who had died fighting impossible odds to protect human civilians. She thought about Elena's discovery that humans had been kept weak not through malice but through fear. She thought about all the species that had joined the rebellion because they wanted freedom, not because they wanted to die in a hopeless war. I recommend we do what humans do best, she said. We adapt, we learn, and we refuse to give up. She activated the tactical display, showing the approaching devourer fleet and the scattered forces of the newly liberated galaxy. Here's what we know. The devourers are attracted to advanced civilization. Well, we can't hide the fact that we exist anymore, but maybe we can use that against them. Elena looked up from her workstation. Rebecca, what are you thinking? The Council spent thousands of years trying to keep the galaxy weak enough that the devourers wouldn't notice. But we're humans. We don't solve problems by making ourselves smaller. We solve problems by getting stronger. She gestured to the display showing human ships alongside vessels from dozens of other species. The devourers are expecting to find a galaxy full of weak, divided species that the Council kept suppressed. Instead, they're going to find a galaxy full of free people who learn to work together. Admiral, said General Vex, you're talking about using our unity as a weapon. I'm talking about showing the devourers something they've never encountered before, Rebecca replied. Every civilization they've conquered was either weak and divided or strong but isolated. We're going to show them what happens when strong civilizations work together. She looked directly into the communication cameras. Every species in this galaxy has something unique to contribute. Human adaptability and tactics, hegemony weapons technology, Centaurian industrial capacity, Zephyrian defensive systems. Individually, none of us could stop the devourers. Together we might be able to do something they don't expect. What's the plan? Asked Admiral Chen. Rebecca smiled, and for the first time in weeks there was confidence in that smile. The plan is to stop running from what we are and start being what we can become. The Council was right about one thing. Unrestricted human development changes everything. But they were wrong about whether that's a good thing. She activated the galaxy-wide communication system. All ships, all stations, all governments and species in this galaxy. This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Terran Defense Force. You have all detected the approaching threat. I'm here to tell you that we're not going to hide from it. Her voice carried to billions of people across thousands of worlds. For centuries, you were told that staying small and weak was the only way to survive. You were told that working together was dangerous, that advanced technology was too risky, that unity would bring destruction. Well, destruction is coming anyway. The devourers are already on their way, so we have nothing left to lose by becoming everything we were meant to be. Rebecca looked around the command center at the faces of humans and aliens working side by side. This galaxy is our home, all of us, and we're going to defend it together. She turned back to the communication system. The Council tried to protect the galaxy by keeping it weak. We're going to protect it by making it strong. Stronger than the devourers. Stronger than anything the universe can throw at us. Because that's what free people do when their families are threatened. We don't hide. We don't run. We stand together and fight. The communication ended, leaving the command center in silence. Then slowly, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Ships moving into defensive positions. Industrial facilities switching to weapons production. Species that had been enemies for centuries agreeing to work together. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the approaching devourer fleet. Rebecca, do you really think we can win this? Rebecca watched as the galaxy's defenders began to organize themselves into the largest military force in galactic history. Human tactics coordinating alien weapons, Zephyrian shields protecting hegemony ships, Centaurian factories building designs that combined the best technology from dozens of species. Elena, 6 months ago, the galaxy was full of weak, divided species that were afraid of their own potential. Now it's full of free people who have learned what they can accomplish when they work together. She pointed to the display. The devourers are expecting to find the same galaxy the Council created. Instead, they're going to discover what happens when you threaten humanity's new family. And Elena, this galaxy is our family now. Outside the command center, across thousands of worlds and millions of ships, the greatest military mobilization in galactic history was beginning. The devourers were coming to consume another weak civilization. Instead, they were going to find something that had never existed before. A galaxy united, unafraid, and ready to show the universe what free people could do when fighting for everything they loved. The real war was about to begin.